Chapter 16. The Dark Forest. Pearl stood inside the dark forest. She wished Ben had come with her. They'd proved to be a good team. They'd caught a Sasquatch together. They'd thwarted the mulberries together. They'd even gotten into trouble together. But now she was alone. She'd only known Ben for a week, but she was getting used to having him around. Too bad Cobblestone the leprechaun hadn't made another pair of silent slippers. If she ran into the little guy again, she'd ask him to make some. She'd wrap them in nice paper and give them to Ben for Christmas. Or for Hanukkah. Then she'd never again have to go into a creepy forest alone. Pearl carefully opened her hand. The 3 fireflies were curled together, fast asleep, their little bellies flickering with flames. If she hadn't been on a life-saving mission, she would have spent more time admiring their unusual design. But the fool needed her. She closed her palm around the snoozing insects, turning her hand into a flashlight. She swept it to and fro so she could get a look at the terrain. The dark forest wasn't tangled. Nothing grew on the ground, not a bit of moss, not a blade of grass. No gigantic white flowers either, which was a huge relief. The trees were so tall that they reached up and out of the darkness, piercing the thick cloud ceiling like spears. Pearl considered her options. Turning back would take her to Dr. Wu and Ben. Right or left would take her along the dark forest's perimeter. Ben had said that the shortest distance to something was a straight line. So straight ahead she went. The forest floor was mostly dirt, twigs, and dry leaves, crunchy stuff. But Pearl didn't have to worry about them. She could have been walking on air, for not a sound emerged from beneath her leprechaun shoes. Using her teeth, she tore a piece of yellow yarn from Ben's hat, then tied it around a branch. She repeated this process every 20 paces, counting exactly. Ben's idea was brilliant. Because yellow showed up well in the firefly light, it would be easy to trace her steps. As Pearl made her way through the forest, she thought about Dr. Wu's story. The doctor and Maximus Steele had been best friends and apprentices, just like Pearl and Ben. Weirder still, when Maximus was a boy, he'd looked like Ben. What strange coincidences. At some point, Maximus turned evil. There was no way Ben would turn evil. He'd taken care of a wyvern hatchling, and he'd helped make a new horn for the rain dragon. He would never hurt a creature for its ivory, or fur pelt, or any reason. She bet her nest collection on that fact. She bit off another piece of yarn. Pearl wasn't normally afraid of the dark. She didn't keep a nightlight in her bedroom, although that was mostly because the lamps on Main Street glowed outside her window all night long. But never in her life had she experienced such pitch blackness. It began to feel smothering, like a heavy blanket pressed over her face. She walked faster. Unicorn foal, where are you? 120 paces in, she spotted something, a wisp of white hair hanging from a low branch. It was silky. It must have come from the foal's mane. Pearl was on the right track. Just as she was tying another piece of yarn, a scent drifted out of the darkness. How is that possible, she wondered. It smelled exactly like a pancake sandwich, with syrup and bacon. She loved those things. A feeling of longing washed over her, as if someone had dumped a bucket of homesickness on her head. She'd seen her parents just a few hours ago, but she missed them with all her heart. Whatever you do, stomach, don't growl, she thought. As she walked toward the scent, it filled her nostrils. She could practically taste the warm fluffiness. That was when she saw the white flowers. Flesh eaters. They grew in a clump just as Dr. Wu had described. The huge white flowers reminded her of tulips with their petals closed tight. Pearl stood perfectly still, not even daring to blink. Luckily, the little fireflies didn't snore. Pearl's mouth watered as the pancake scent grew stronger. Dr. Wu had said the flesh eaters created different scents. How could they possibly know that Pearl liked pancakes? What would they smell like for Ben? Giving the flowers a wide berth, Pearl walked around the clump. Not a single flesh-eater noticed. There was no need to be afraid. Not getting eating is going to be easy, she thought as she hurried away. 40 more paces and she found another piece of white hair, a very good sign. She wanted to call out to the foal and let her know that help was coming. There were no flesh-eaters in sight. Maybe it would be okay. But that's when something flickered overhead, like a star in the black night. She narrowed her eyes. The star grew larger. What was that? Was it floating downward toward her? Dr. Wu said to watch out for flesh-eaters. She hadn't mentioned anything else, except for Maximus Steele.